All right, so for the next video, I'm going to be covering criteria search for running comps. So when we configure a seller's offer, we take in account a formula to find out how much the seller should receive. That formula is the ARV times 0.70 to 0.80 minus repairs minus our profit equals the offer to the seller. ARV stands for after repair value. You're going to see the video on how to run comps on the MLS to determine the ARV. The ARV is going to be the number that the property will sell for after the property is repaired. So we run comps using the MLS, which is called the multiple listing system that realtors use on a daily basis to determine the value of a home after it is repaired or in as-is condition. So in this formula, and this is going to take time, you must practice and run through a lot of scenarios and giving a lot of offers before it fully clicks. But we break down this formula to give the offer, and it's really broken down to make sure all parties are accounted for. So an example, we determine the value, the after repair value of the house. We times it by 0.70 up to 0.80 because the remaining of the percentage up to 100% is what the buyer receives. So if we work the deal at 0.70, the buyer receives 0.30 of the ARV. If we work it at 0.80, the buyer receives 0.20, which is up to 100%, hence of the ARV. Rule of thumb is a flipper, a investor that purchases the property to flip it, wants to at least see a minimum of around 25 to 35,000 in profits. If you're anywhere around 25,000, it might not be a good deal for the investor. 30,000 and up is about average that investors are looking for to do a rehab flip deal. You can also work deals with investors at around 75 to 80% if a buyer is holding the property. Holding the property means holding the property to purchase it as a rental property for that seller. So we take this percentage to include the buyer's payout, the investor's fee, and we're going to minus the repairs because the buyer has to put the repairs in to get it to the after repair value. And then our profit is included in the offer. So it's deducted from the seller's offer to make sure we have calculated our offer as well. So we deduct all these things. It's going to come up with the offer to the seller for the seller to see if we can see about doing a deal. So these bullet points are things that you're gonna pull up this document when you open the MLS and run comps. So you can determine what criteria that you need to include when you're running comps to find out like properties just like yours. So we're never going to search for a property that's too far or too big or too small or does not have similar or same bedrooms and bathrooms. So as you can see, we've bullet pointed these criteria. The first criteria is 200 plus and minus square feet as subject property. Subject property is the address of the property that you're working on. So if your property, let's give an example. I'm going to put an example here so we can all use reference. Let's just say we have 123 Main Street and the house is a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,450 square feet. And also it's in Heights subdivision. And it is a 1962 build. The build means the year that the property was built. So here's our example. Again, I can't spell. Here's our example that we'll use as our subject property. So if I have this property, and I know it's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,450 square feet, in Heights subdivision, it's a 1962 build, we want to search our comps, 200 more, all the way up to 200 less. I'm going to change that around. All the way up to 200 more square feet than the subject property. So for this property, we would search properties between 1,250 square feet, which is 200 less, up to 1,650 square feet, which is 200 more. And this will give us a range of homes that are similar size as ours here on 123 Main Street. In the next section, it's 5 to 10 years more or less than subject properties year built. Lately, I've been finding myself search properties that are 10 years plus and minus, 10 years less and more than subject property. And the reason why is because sometimes 5 years plus and minus is going to be not enough homes that show. And it doesn't hurt if you have a house that's a 2, 3, 4, or 5 years more than your subject property. So you can search 5 years initially, and you can go all the way up to 10 years plus and minus, meaning less and more than subject property on your search. So an example on a 10-year range, in my range section, I'm going to search 1952 to 1972, which is 10 years less than and 10 years more than our subject property. The next section is same beds and bath as subject property. Rule of thumb, 2 ones are comparable to 3 ones, and 3 twos are comparable to 4 twos. So sometimes you'll find that there are neighborhoods that have a lot of 2 ones, but there are no 3 ones, or a lot of 3-bedroom, 1 baths, and there are no 2 ones. And let's just say your property's a 2-1, but all you're seeing is 3 ones. You're able to compare these two because of really it's a match in the bathroom. And then sometimes, let's just say you have a 3-bedroom, 2-bath property like ours, and it's in a neighborhood full of 4-bedroom, 2-bath properties. You can compare these. You only use the rule of thumb if you are not able to find same bed and bath count as your subject property. It's the only time you can use the rule of thumb. So let me notate that now. Only use the rule of thumb if you are not able to find comps with the same bed and bath as subject property. Very simple. All right, so if you're not able to find a same bed and bath, make sure you use this rule of thumb so you are able to widen your criteria to find comparable sales. Now, comparables, also known as comps, these are also only on sold properties. These are not homes that are on the market. These are not homes that are pending sale. These are homes that have sold and is no longer available. A sale has happened. So keep that in mind. The next section is same subdivision. So you're going to see the CAD. The CAD stands for County Appraisal District. There are a few websites that you will use to determine the subdivision for the property, which you'll see a video on how to find the information on the CAD. But the goal is to find properties in the same subdivision if possible. If not, it's okay, because in this last bullet, you're going to only do a half-a-mile radius search. So you're not searching all across town or across the highway or across the city, you're going to be searching in a half-a-mile radius from your subject property. Rule of thumb, for land, you're able to search up to 2 miles out when it comes to the radius search. And then the next one is you want to look at property sold in the last 9 months, which is 270 days, which you'll see how to input that information to search properties that have sold just recently and not years and years ago. We're going to use the most updated, accurate information to determine the comps for your subject property. With your comparables and using this criteria to find your comps, you will find how to do find the ARV. See the MLS video in determining the ARV to put these 2 videos together. So rule of thumb, which you may have heard in another video, he who talks first loses. So rule of thumb, if you know what the seller wants, you know how much money you can make, because he who talks first loses. So, spell that wrong, loses, hopefully I got that right. So, an example, ARV, at repair value times 0.70 minus repairs minus what the seller wants or is asking, leaves us with our profit. So let's just say we have a formula. I'm going to clear this out. Let's just say we have configured with the criteria above an ARV of 100,000 for round numbers. And the repairs were 10K, and we know the seller wants let's say $40,000. They're asking is $40,000. So now you can plug and play. So if the ARV is 100,000, you want to use 100,000 times 0.70, which is 70%, minus repair, which is 10K. Now we're down to 60%, minus what the seller wants, which is 40K. And that leaves us with our profit. So if we're at ARV at 70%, which is 70,000, minus 10K, which is 60,000, and the seller wants 40, then we know we have the potential to receive a $20,000 assignment fee. What an assignment fee is, a fee for assigning your deal to an end buyer. It's a document that we have to assign our paper that we've signed with the seller to the buyer. It's the B to C. So he who talks first loses. This is the formula that you can run to configure that math. You always want to find out what the seller is asking, which it needs to be here. Not what the seller wants, but their asking price. And then we can find out how much money on the spread we have remaining. So this concludes our criteria search for running comps. You want to use this criteria every single time to get the best data to configure your ARV, so you know what to plug and play for your offer to the seller. And this concludes the video.